Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers.
Oh my
So,
gosh, we are flying through the year. It is, was it Monstrous March? I think we decided.
I think so. I'm not sure if this is going to air in April though. So who
Oh,
knows?
okay. Who knows? Where time is a relative construct, right? It's you
Yes.
know the
You know,
classic Douglas Adams line: "Time is a relative construct. Lunchtime doubly so." So yeah,
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
yeah.
I
We've
did
been.
have
Oh,
potentially a
good.
Discord notification just squeak in there as we started recording because I hadn't
Oh,
put it off, but I can tell by the look Bo's giving me from the sidelines here, she may or may not be able to remove that. Hello, team. Well,
we've had my phone on a few times. We're a professional show.
we
Yeah,
are
we're
like
so good at.
we are such effing rock stars. I'm telling you, man.
Man, we were at an event a couple weeks ago out near Durham, North Carolina. Carrie was at an event she was attending, and I was given a day to run around the town, and I hadn't been there in ages. So we rode around, found a few places that I hadn't been, and I completely forgot that Duke University was right there. And I was like, oh my gosh, Duke, this is where the parapsychology lab used to be that I wrote to a few times and never got a response back. Well, that was because I didn't realize it had closed in the 60s, long before I started writing to them in the 70s as a kid. But some of the stuff did wind up with people associated with it. And I got letters back as a child, which is how I got in touch with people like Hans Holzer and the Warrens and some of these people who were big in the field back then. All started with me not being able to write this Duke University parapsychology lab that I had read so much about. So it was kind of interesting being there, synchronicities and all that. And so I was like, I wonder whatever happened to the Duke parapsychology lab. Then no one talks about it anymore. No one discusses it anymore.
Well,
And
one of the things too that ties back, so I didn't know any of that, of course, because I had a life growing up. No, just kidding. That's totally a joke. That's not true. That's not accurate. Well, it's somewhat accurate, but this is something that is kind of mimicked, is it not, in Ghostbusters?
well, yeah, they actually do a tribute to it. We're going to get into this. We're going to go on a deep dive of this, gang. I think you're going to love it because it's still there in a way, and they still offer classes, and you can get certifications and doctorates in
Ooh.
so you can finally become a doctor of parapsychology. But yes, the classic moment from Ghostbusters at the beginning. Yes, let me. The thing you probably know the most about were the cards, right? They were testing ESP,
Yes,
right?
and
Oh,
I believe Bill Murray tested, and the whether the female student did good or not, she was great, and then the male student got electrocuted.
yeah, no matter. Well, even when he got it right, he was studying the negative effects on negative stimulus on psychical energy. So Erica, I'm gonna hold up a card.
Okay,
This is one of the official cards from Duke University, picked up many years ago, and I'm gonna hold it up. Erica, concentrate. What is this card?
is it a star?
It is a star. Wow, you are right there at the top of the charts here. So, but these were the cards. We'll talk about these in a minute, but they have aged a bit, and maybe there was some cheating going on there.
Oh
That
yeah, no, I can totally see through them, but I think that shows a different ability that I have than just simply being psychic. I am a grifter and am
yeah,
able to make it through these things. Different ability.
but we'll get into this. All right, so remember the 1890s, right?
Yeah.
Spiritualism really taking off in Victorian era, 1880s, 1890s. Even Abraham Lincoln over here in the United States had a seance in the 1860s. These things, it's been around for a long time. And the Fox sisters, I think we talked about them in previous episodes. And we've certainly talked about Casadega being influenced by all these early days of spiritualism and all that.
And
One of my favorite.
go ahead. What your favorite? Because I have one too, and let's see if it's the same.
Well, one of my favorite bits from this era is that Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, and his friend Harry Houdini team up to start investigating all these psychics, and they both start as believers. And then the more they do this, the more Conan Doyle becomes a believer, and the more Harry Houdini becomes a skeptic, because he's able to spot the parlor tricks, the show within the show, because he's the stage magician. And Conan Doyle is such a believer, he's seeing the real, what he wants to see.
Yeah. No, that's true. I guess what I was thinking about was Dan Aykroyd's brother, and we should throw a link in, wrote a book. And I've been listening to this book, honestly, on and off between murder podcasts. I have to get my fix. But one of the things is it talks about how these very wealthy people, these well-to-do people, would have seances, and they would have people come in that were supposedly trained in the occult or like that sort of thing, to help host these very, very prestigious events that would occur. It's kind of interesting to think that like high society was doing these really fancy things, and it became a whole thing. And now people are like, you believe in ghosts? What's wrong with you? It's like a weird thing.
Well, it's funny because if only they'd learned about Dungeons and Dragons or board games, but that would have been what they do when they lead up into the parlors.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Anyway, so we're coming out of that. We get into World War I and the horrors of that, right? And in American society, 1920s, it's exploding. We discussed that on our gangsters episode, right? That was the roaring 20s, and it was prohibition, and women got the right to vote and all this. So the 20s was a whole new ball game, and we're starting to get motion pictures are a lot more available now and becoming more mainstream. We just watched the 100th anniversary of Phantom of the Opera the other day, and you realize, oh my gosh, the world is changing and all that at this time. And Houdini and Doyle have their big split after the fairy book came out, right? Where the two little girls could see fairies, and they took pictures of them. And Doyle was convinced that this was reality because he didn't understand how camera tricks worked and all that. Some of the fairies had these very eloquent heads, and they were wearing very fancy clothes. That was because the girls had cut pictures of the ladies models out of Parisian fashion magazines. That's why some of the fairies had hairpins and were supporting all those Parisian hairstyles from the 1920s.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Forced perspective is a thing, gang. Anyway, Doyle and Houdini, they had a big split after that. So they split apart. But what's also coming out at the same time is psychotherapy. Like Freud and Jung and all these guys are all coming out at this same time, and they're trying to build their practices. And now, Erica, you and I recently worked on our Dark Side of the Smokies book. What also is coming out at this time? The sauna therapy. Go to the mountain air. Go to the Florida South and to dodge tuberculosis, to dodge Spanish flu, to build up your lungs and become stronger. So there's all that. So Kellogg and Biltmore, who are running the pharmaceutical side of things, start making huge donations to universities. Promote our way of thinking. Promote our life. Medical schools can only promote our things.
And the irony of that, I guess, too, is that, it was this whole endeavor to bring legitimacy to what they were doing. Not that there's anything wrong, right? Because, fresh air is helpful as long as you're not surrounded by other people with tuberculosis in that fresh air, right? For instance, or Spanish flu. Like, we still have the medical profession not defining the transmission and things like that. There's stuff that isn't defined. And when you're talking about Freud, you're talking more about the exploration of mental illness and
Yep.
how, our minds work, as a general way of saying it,
Right.
which really hadn't been touched on. It's so interesting because we have this vast array of knowledge that, some of us use and some of us pretend doesn't exist, but we have this vast array of knowledge, and that didn't exist back then.
No,
There was
and
still
that's how
bloodletting and other horrific ways of doing things because at the time that was the most advanced medical profession was.
and that's what's happening here is that they're saying, well, these things are pseudoscience. And even Freud and psychology, they're considering pseudoscience at this point because it's not anything. You can't go in with a scalpel and find schizophrenia. You can't go in with a scalpel and find depression or hysteria, which was the common of the time. A woman's hysteria. Yeah,
Well,
and all that. So,
some of the treatments for those things,
yeah, we discussed that when Bo did her fun bit on the institutionalism and stuff like that, and we got to see a little taste of that when we went to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and all that. So it's unpleasant. But anyway, that's what also is happening is they decide, well, we can't have any of this stuff either. These people who are trying to talk to ghosts, and these people who are trying to focus on extrasensory perception, which I don't even think that was the term at the time, or definitely not telekinesis and definitely not poltergeists. My goodness, that is beyond us. But reincarnation, maybe? No. That's pseudoscience. We can't have any of this. So none of this is at any accredited doctorate can you get on this in these big schools. Well, Dr. William McDougall, who is suddenly working for this other school, Duke University, which isn't being funded by the Biltmores, isn't being funded by the Kellogg's. It's being funded by a church. And the church is interested in that which comes beyond, learning more about the world around us. It's a little more open-minded. So Dr. McDougall invites a couple of doctors, Dr. J.B. and Louisa Rhine, to Durham.
Okay.
And they were big on mesmerism, which Freud was a big fan of mesmerism at the time, hypnosis. We're still trying to figure that out then. And we're still trying to figure it out today because it got cut away from the big schools. So because of that, they decide they want to study this phenomena through a scientific lens.
Oh.
And thus the science of parapsychology is born in 1930, basically. And
fascinating, my friend. Fascinating.
Yes. So they start coming up with some tests, including these Zener cards, right? They come up with some other things. And basically for 35 years, from 1930 to 1965, at the school, they founded the Parapsychology Laboratory. And they studied ESP, telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, and psychokinesis, which is the moving of stuff with the mind. They decided to cut out ghost hunting because it was already, they were having trouble being taken seriously. They figured they would just focus on things of the mind, right?
Okay.
And at its most basic, we know what they did, right? They sat in a room, they held up a card, and some sort of barrier between them, the other person would try to figure out the site, the attention of the card and all this. But this basically blows up publicly. And people like Timothy Leary, Aldous Huxley, Carl Jung, Harry Houdini, Upton Sinclair, famous writers and stuff like that, they start wanting to know more. So they start corresponding with the school and really, really trying to figure this all out. What is this study and all this? So let's go back in the Wayback Machine. And we're going to talk about...
I hope Bo's put all the snacks in there, because if they're not snacks, I'm going to be mad.
Well, the I-40 just recently opened. It's still only one lane each direction, but we were able to get to the Buc-ee's with minimal difficulty and restock. So
okay,
so
good. We were able to get to that
Sevierville Buc-ee's, and Dollywood just reopened too. So life is good out here in the Smoky Mountains. So
It's true.
but
It's true.
all right, so they were a team. JB and Louisa Rhine were a team of researchers, and they were trying everything to figure this stuff out. One of my favorite pictures at the University Archives is this picture of JB Rhine, and he's actually testing a dog. I will get Bo the clackety clack of that image so that she can use it for the episode. And the picture is basically, is he testing this dog for ESP? But of course, he did undertake animal testing for precognition and other phenomena in animals. And this work is very there in his research collection. But they basically had to build the field of study because there's no right, wrong way at this point, and there was no science methods for this. So that's when they come up with the Zener cards. And they are trying to figure out other tests that could work and stuff like that. So one of the other tests is, can you guess the outcome of a dice roll? So they start rolling dice and see if you can guess what the dice are going to come out with. And then they start.
I got to ask you this, Mark, because I know we jumped in the Wayback Machine, and sorry, I was busy eating snacks. But I think one of the things we didn't do for our lovely travelers is just a really brief, what is precognition? Like, what are they trying to find?
The precognition is that sense of, oh, I've got a bad feeling about this, and then something bad happening. Or I think this event is going to play out this way, and then it does. That's that whole, I feel the world is going to end on February 14th, 2028.
Okay.
Valentine's Day. Bummer. Again, Ghostbusters quote. Ghostbusters 2 quote that time. But that's precognition. Psychokinesis is being able to move something with your mind, making the dice roll the way you want to. Man, if you can get that down, let's go meet at Harrah's or somewhere in Vegas.
I was going to say, if we get that down, we're going to Vegas, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they basically developed also, these things to study this. And they also decided, it's the mind. So people are affected by their mood. People are affected by anything that could be just, mildly bothering them. So they came up with questionnaires to give people, and they would hand those out so that way they could, just put in all these things to make it so, look, this is what's going on. You've got to be able to figure this out. So my goodness, I'm sorry. I'm a little overwhelmed here because the Duke University sent me links to their archives on the parapsychology lab. And I'm looking at the questionnaire, and it's overwhelming, some of the questions that they would ask and stuff like that. If you want to see this collection, I'll put the link to it. It's from the archives at Duke University, and I'll make sure we put the link in the clackety clack. But there are newspaper articles, there are all these other things there. I was trying to quickly look over at the questionnaire, and some of them are basic, like, are you happy today? What recent sad news have you had? I'm like, can you imagine doing that in the age of social media? That would be a 12-page response right there. So they gave you one line.
But it also indicates how much they didn't understand about how thinking works and understanding emotions. Like, if you really consider, like, there was generational, like, men can't be sad. And if women are upset, that's some hysteria. And like, there was these really weird boxes that humans had put themselves in for years with this arbitrary decision on emotional interactions with situations. And to think of a question like that, you've got to go, wow, they hadn't even begun to really scratch the surface of a lot of this stuff because it's not even well defined.
And that's exactly, and these were things that they were coming up with, and they were, so it's like mood, fatigue, their level of skepticism, information about ambient noise in the room.
Wow.
more and more stuff like that is all on this form, right? Is there something bothering your hearing? Things like that. This is stuff I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had these tests nowadays before I start work on a day, or, start trying to write in the morning. I should give myself this questionnaire every morning and see what happens. But
Oh
to
yeah, you
eliminate,
never start working, Mark. I already know the answer to what's going to happen.
yeah, there you go.
No, and
Yeah,
Bo would be drinking coffee and writing horror books all day because that is the only thing that would be sparking joy besides cuddling with her kids and her dog. Like, this would be an entire thing we'd be on.
yeah. So some of the tests were meant to eliminate human error in
Yeah.
this, right? They were trying to be as scientific as they could about this. So being at Duke University, and a fairly new university, they had laboratory access to lots of engineering and physics equipment so that they could develop a variety of machines for facilitating testing, right? And to make things easier. And now one of the things they did was holding up the cards. They actually tested the machines on this to see if they could guess what a future card might be, what the next card I will pull. That like that Zinner test, me holding up to you, what card am I holding up? One of the tests was what will be the next card that comes up, right? That was to test the precognition. What will be the next card I draw? So Erica, do you want to make a guess? What's the next card I draw? I'm just going to grab a random card.
It's going to be a plus sign.
No, it was a triangle. It was a good try. Good try.
Well, I guess my grifting skills are not applicable in this part of it.
That means you're not precog. Now, if I hold up a card to my head and say, what is this card? That's
let me just, I think it may be a plus sign.
It's a plus sign. Oh my gosh, you're 2 for 2. So
yeah,
telekinesis is
look at me, incredible. Travelers. I am like the absolute best at psycho abilities.
Using these tests, the machines were wrong about a big chunk of the time, right? They're just guessing. And then humans, a lot of them were wrong. A lot of them were guessing, and wrong. But then there were a few standouts, a few people who blew the curve, right? Were 60% correct, 70% correct. That's crazy, right?
That's huge.
And now, if you read anything about these studies now online, you go to Wikipedia, you go to any major scientific thing, they will talk about how the results there were problematic, and that there were fakes, and there were obviously this going on. And it's like, no, they did everything they could to make sure this wasn't happening. That's why they use these sophisticated machines and techniques and stuff like that.
I mean, if you think about it, like, this is something that would be scary, right?
Yeah.
For people to have to acknowledge that there are some people with the ability. And I think this truly exists. I feel like a lot of times, when it comes to fortune telling and stuff like that, there are people with some ability, I feel, this is my personal feeling, sometimes to see what other people are thinking about in that moment. And not like long story, but go, if I'm going and hoping my fortune reader will tell me, Billy is in love with me and blah, 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 right? Then, and the fortune teller goes, there is a man who is in love with you. Like, that sort of thing, because there are people with those abilities. I mean, there are people with all kinds of different, I like to call them superpowers. So, but I think acknowledging that somebody could possibly know what's going to happen before it happens, or have the ability to move something with their mind, with energy, whatever the heck it is, right? Like, there has been proof of that. So I think it's really interesting, though, for somebody to when anybody totally discounts something, especially when it's done out of a university with the checks and balances that were put in place, I kind of go, that's a little bit judgmental of you, my friend.
Right. So, no, one of my favorite things that they did was J.B. Ryan himself was was intrigued by Lady the Wonder Horse Psychic. Yes, Lady Wonder was the name of the horse. The educated mind-reading horse who will answer questions for you. And Ryan himself went out to test her and, quote, found her to be surprisingly good at testing. She was able to spell out basic questions as well as answer questions about the future. And the testing process was difficult and went through many iterations. And if you want to learn more about that test, reach out to Duke University's archives, and I'm sure they will happily send you ladies' results.
Wow.
But one of the things they sent me was her business card.
Did she have a business card?
She had her own business card with her phone number. And Lady Wonder, the educated mind-reading horse, will answer questions. Contact Mrs. C.D. Fonda of Petersburg Pike and Buffin Road.
Wow.
Open every afternoon, and then it's crossed out, so I'm not sure exactly what the if it was also evenings. But fourth house on the right. That's what.
Wow.
So I can't imagine she traveled far to hand out these.
Talk about, and there's our travel for this episode. Go see Lady the Wonder Horse. Just kidding. That's not a thing. But
yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating because, like, look at one of the most popular TV shows there was. I loved watching Mr. Ed at Nick at Night, but Mr. Ed and the Talking Horse, people were interested in that.
Yeah, one of their famous things was Houdini sent them a spirit photograph of him talking to Abraham Lincoln. And he sent it to them to see if they would fall for it. And of course they didn't. And so that was why he was like, okay, maybe I will work with you guys. Yeah. You know, he was very big against people who could speak with the dead and all that. Now, Carl Jung sent them a dagger that had spontaneously exploded and said, what the heck, you know, what could this be? Right. And anyway, that was something that they studied, and man, it's just,
did they ever have an answer for what this was?
No, they did not. They did not. So, but they do have the correspondence between J.B. Ryan and Carl Jung from 1934 in their archives and stuff. And the knife made a couple more appearances in some of the later correspondences and stuff. So there were tons of letters of skeptics, right? And tons of other things. And it's pretty crazy. So we'll have to go through some of these a little bit after the break. So
and one thing I also want to throw in here, because we were talking a little bit about where medical science was and the mental health science and stuff like that. One of the other things that science as a whole, science continues to make tremendous leaps and bounds about how things work, right? We're learning all the time. You know, that's something that my new best friend, Neil deGrasse Tyson, tell him I said that in the episode. But he talked a lot about that when I was on that cruise, was, you know, that science is continuing. Like, we don't see it all the time because we're not scientists, we're not on the ground, but there are, you know, changes made all the time. So let's just take one thing, for instance. If you'd gone in that time period and told people there's going to be a device that you can put food in that will heat in less than 2 minutes, they would think you were insane. The amount of skeptical things you'd get, there's no way, combustion. You'd probably even get scientists writing in telling you that it would be impossible for a microwave to ever exist, right? Yet it does now. So, you know, we're going to take a quick break, but that's something to consider when we're talking about these things, is that science, medical science, mental health science, none of that was as advanced as it is today. And with that, travelers, hear a word from our amazing sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Prepare to be devoured. The Wolves of Wharton is a 6-part complete book series by Eerie Travels producer Bo Lake. It has been called dark and visceral, steamy, dramatic, and a fresh take on the werewolf mythos. If you like action, adventure, a large serving of body horror, and some steamy relations, the Wolves of Wharton series is for you. Pick it up wherever books are sold, or at linktree.com/bow__lake.
Okay, we're back. So, Mark, tell me
All right.
more fascinating things. This is amazing.
So anyway, the school runs till 65 with the parapsychology department, and J.B. Ryan is now in his 70s. He was trying to originally he and his wife were originally going to be botanists, right? Until the 1920s, when they listened to a lecture about psychical research and spiritualism given by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So a few years later, they terminated their botany careers and moved to Massachusetts.
Oh.
And there they studied under McDougall. And he was a parapsychology pioneer, but he was basically a anti-behaviorist, which was pretty scandalous at the time. I don't know much about that, so didn't look into it enough, but I like the idea of being an anti-behaviorist.
That sounds like early punk rockers.
It sounds like it, right? Like an anti-psychologist. I'm right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm in. So anyway, he decides that's when he goes to Duke and starts working with that. And that's when they get there. So now Ryan and his team, he was being forced to retire. So but he still wanted to keep working on this. So he took the lab and privatized it.
Oh.
And he originally called it something about the new man's thing. I'll have to look the right name up. I'm sorry. But it was like the new world, new human study organization or something like that. I don't remember the official name. But it didn't stay that long. It later became the Rhine Research Center, named for him. Right.
Okay.
So, and his wife. So they go on to do this. Now, he basically found the fraud of a popular medium at the time, a Marjorie Crandon at the Rhine. And then he also basically coins the term extrasensory perception, ESP. And he also starts talking about a word, the sixth sense, detecting information not perceived by the other five senses.
Ooh, like
these are terms. This guy, he may not have come up with them, but he's definitely the guy who popularized them because he started sending them out to magazines, Scientific American, and more popularly, Teen magazine. Got it. Do you have ESP? And they famously reprinted the cards so you could cut and make your own deck on the back.
Wow.
So he's famous for this stuff. So the Rhine continues still doing this stuff. That's when they start working on working in other fields. Now, Louisa Rhine, she also develops, in parallel to this, she develops the Durham Nursery School, which is the first nursery for children of working women. Okay. She was also the founder of the League of Women Voters at the time. And in addition to studying psychic experiences and stuff. So there are thousands and thousands of cases, tens of thousands of cases of these people testing and doing all this. So these people are like, oh, it's, the documented results and all this or nothing. And now what's funny is because they debunk Mina Crandon, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle criticized Rhine for his colossal impertinence and simply called him, quote, a monumental ass.
Oh my gosh.
That's why you shouldn't meet your heroes, folks. Just go in there saying
a monumental ass.
Yeah. Again, many critics point out that there were never significant results of his experiments. Cheating, sloppiness, machine bias, and all this. But that's not the case. When you start looking into this, particularly ones that have been not refuted by, meta-analysis and stuff like that. They looked at over of his thousands and thousands of studies, right?
Yeah.
And the journal Psychology posted this article that said the result was, what was it? The probability result was P to 10-24, which would basically be 0.00000000000000001% that they were finding anything.
Oh, wow.
0.05 would be considered statistically significant by comparison there. So they were saying that this was just design errors. There's no parapsychology experiments, that have ever worked, right? This is all garbage. But, and a lot of these other results say, it was never replicated in any other laboratories. It's never been done anywhere except at the Duke University and at the Rhine Institute. No, it's been done a lot of other places, and a lot of other places found significant results. And especially those few superstars that we talked about, those people, if you study their tests, they do throw the curve. That's the thing. Those are the ones that are cut out of all those meta-analyses. They cut those out. So the people that they are looking to find, they're cutting out. So yeah, of course it's going to make it negative. So that's why, schools and all that say this is all bunk and all that, you got to go, wait a minute. Look at us. We're not psychics. We're not Bigfoot hunters. We're not ghost hunters. We're not UFO chasers, but we are interested in these things, right?
Yeah.
And we are also interested in psychological research. We are interested in metaphysics in general and paranormal in general. So what was it? Just a few years ago, they did a couple studies of just, do people believe? And I think it was over 60% of the respondents said, yeah, psychic phenomena, ESP, ghosts, they're real. And I think over 20% said, yes, we've experienced it or seen it. And then there, it's 20% of all patients who have a heart attack say they've had a near-death experience and seen things that they can't explain. 1 in 5 Americans goes to see a psychic at least once a year.
Really?
Did you know that?
No.
There's 3 of us here. Which of us is doing it?
It's Bo. It's absolutely
Bo.
Bo.
I talk to a lot of them. I don't actually go see them, but I talk to a lot of them. So maybe I'm making up for the other 2. So parapsychology is still kind of this subculture, right? It's still not, it's the kind of fun intersection between science and spiritualism, right? So we get people who are into statistics study this, people who are into shamanism study this, people who are into ghost hunting study this. Thank you, Ghostbusters, for even bringing this up and all that. So Shirley Jackson, my Haunting of Hill House lady that I love dearly, she's my queen. She was super inspired by these studies and everything, and she included it in the Haunting of Hill House. She talks about Theodora, the psychic that goes there. She's a star of Duke University's parapsychology lab. Now, the Rhine Institute is still there. It's just down the street from Duke University, and it is still one of the leading parapsychology institutes. They are building on the work of their founders. Now that they are privatized, they can do this testing that they wanted to do. So they do involve ghost hunting. They do involve reincarnation studies and stuff like that. They have a wonderful blog called Ask a Parapsychologist, which I highly recommend reading for anybody. It's also good for online myth busting. So it's not what you think, and anybody can join that. Their community. You can join that. You can participate in the studies. You can even, if Erica, hold on, I'm gonna hold up another card. Let me shuffle.
Here we go.
Let me shuffle. All right, Erica, what am I holding up? What am I holding up? Oh, I don't know.
Is that a triangle?
It's a triangle. Oh my gosh. Look at that.
I'm saying I'm a rock star. I'm just like.
Okay, now let's check the precog. I'm going to draw another card. I'm not going to show this one. I'm drawing this one.
Okay.
What did I draw?
It has a circle.
It is a plus. So your precog ain't there. You're not ready to pick the lottery numbers, but you are there. If somebody is holding the lottery ticket, you can read them their numbers.
That's
So
true. That's very true.
anyway, if you're feeling particularly psychic one day, go on there and try one of their tests. You can also there sign up for classes
Oh,
and learn to be a parapsychologist. You can get a
interesting.
certificate in field investigation for paranormal phenomena. They have certificate courses that you can get, which can also lead to courses on actual parapsychology. They have tons of courses available, and they are all done mostly Lloyd Auerbach. He's kind of the current head.
Okay.
Kenny Biddle, who is known as the one of our favorite skeptics. We love Kenny Biddle. He actually teaches a course in a skeptical approach to parapsychology there.
Okay.
And they do theories of psi, paranormal phenomena classes, and writing about your experiences from some of our favorite paranormal writers, and even history of parapsychology and stuff. And these are 4-6 week courses and stuff like that. And you can just audit these courses if you would like, or you can take them for a grade. And if you take them for a grade, yes, you too can get a doctor of parapsychology like Dr. Peter Venkman or Dr. Ray Stantz or Dr. Egon Spengler.
Which just is kind of badass to talk about. I mean, no offense, I would love to be a Ghostbuster. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah. No, the Rhine is an amazing place. They have their own archives as well as the ones at Duke University. Now, Duke University has an exhibit that is there for the old parapsychology lab and stuff. And they have some of the Zinner cards. They have some of the documents. They have all the documents pertaining to the exploded dagger from Dr. Jung. And they also have Upton Sinclair talking about what idiots they are. So yeah, the letters there on that. But it's amazing, fun place to visit. If you happen to be at Duke University, swing by and enjoy their exhibits, or at the very least, contact the Rhine, see if they have an open house that you can visit, or go on their website and audit a course, or hang out in their community, read ask the parapsychologist blog, come on.
Oh my gosh, we need our travelers to go on and do these tests and tell us and tag us in the results. I want to know.
Let's find out.
Which of our travelers is a psychic or telekinesis or all these things. Like, I want to know right now.
We've got our strong Appalachian witch community out there that have their own little message board, and we'd love you guys to get on there and tell us how you do. Did you do 5 out of 5 on the card? Did you do whatever? Oh my goodness. But gang, what a fun little rabbit hole. That was a lot of fun. It was unexpected trip. So I was happy to have visited it. There's some fun bookstores in that town. One of my favorites is right near the college, and it's called Yes, Books Are Okay to Decorate. That's my kind of bookstore. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Carrie was there for a convention, and I'm glad that I had a day with the driver to run around and hit some other spots while she was doing that. So
no, totally. And I think unexpected travel can sometimes be the best kind of travel unless you're being abducted.
True that.
That is my
unexpected travel. How's that? There's our term.
That is my Erica Eerie travel advice for the day, Femmes. So with that,
okay, I'm gonna do one more card, Erica.
Okay.
Hold it up. What could this one possibly be?
So difficult. Is it a square?
It is a square. Oh my God.
I'm telling you, just
I don't have to send you the electric shocks. So,
yes, thank God.
I'm impressed. I think that was 5 for 5, unless I've miscounted. So
no, I am a regular psychic entity to be, reckoned with.
Yep.
So
I think here's our proof. You've just blown the curve again. Let's throw that in the metadata on that test and see what these naysayers say out there. So
or anyone who actually looks at the fact that I could see through the cards. It's
Yeah.
fine. With that said, Mark, other than
we're an audio podcast. It's allowed.
thanking our patrons for all of their support, as always.
Oh
Thank you
my
so
gosh,
much, travelers. We are so excited to have you on these journeys with us. And Mark, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, thank you, gang, again. And we're going to just keep doing these as best we can. I hope you've enjoyed some of the mini-sodes that we've been doing. And those have been a lot of fun. And we are definitely loving these deep dives that we always do. But here we go. As you're traveling through the world and you're wandering around and you wonder, get that feeling that something's not right. Something just isn't good. I should stop. You should probably stop and ask yourself, did I dodge a wreck? Did I avoid something terrible ahead? You might have, but you also might have affected the timeline. And now we're in a world where Dolly doesn't have braces in Moonraker, and it's all your fault. And we'll see you on the other side.